Chapter 56. 3 days later, toward 8:30 of the evening on which the ceremony of the signing of the marriage contract between Andrea Cavalcanti and Eugenie Danglars was to take place, the main salon of the Danglars residence, along with the three other salons on the same floor, was filled with a crowd of elegant people whose presence was due much more to curiosity than to affection for the Danglars family. Myriads of candles poured floods of light over the furnishings of the salon, whose bad taste was unredeemed by their expensiveness. Mademoiselle Eugenie Danglars was dressed with elegant simplicity in a figured white silk dress. A white rose, half lost in her jet black hair, was her only ornament. She wore no jewels. Madame Danglars was speaking with Debray, Beauchamp, and Chateau Renaud. Monsieur Danglars, surrounded by deputies and financiers, was explaining a new theory of taxation which he intended to put into place when the government was finally forced to call on him. Andrea Cavalcanti was holding the arm of a dapper young dandy and describing to him the luxurious life he expected to lead in the future with his 175,000 franc income. The crowd flowed in and out of the salons like a tide of rubies, emeralds, opals, and diamonds. As always, it was the oldest women who were the most elaborately ornamented and the ugliest who were the most obstinately set on showing themselves. At each moment, the doorkeeper's voice rose above all the noise of the crowd to announce some name known to the financial world, respected in the army, or celebrated in literature. But for every name which had the privilege of producing a ripple in that human sea, how many others were greeted only by indifference or a sneer of disdain? Just as the massive clock was striking 9, the name of Count of Monte Cristo was announced, and all eyes turned toward the door. The Count was dressed in his usual simplicity. His white vest displayed his broad and noble chest. The thin gold chain which crossed it was his only piece of jewelry. With a single glance, the Count saw Madame Danglars at one end of the salon, Monsieur Danglars at the other, and Mademoiselle Eugenie before him. He went to Madame Danglars first, then to Eugenie, whom he congratulated quickly and reservedly. Beside her was Mademoiselle Louise d'Armilly, who thanked him for the letters of recommendation he had been kind enough to give her for Italy, and which, she said, she intended to put to use in the near future. As he was leaving these ladies, he turned around and found himself facing Monsieur Danglars, who had come over to shake hands with him. Andrea, who was in an adjoining salon, felt the wave of excitement which the Count's arrival had produced in the crowd and came in to greet him. He found him completely surrounded. Everyone was striving to have the honor of speaking with him, as always happens with people who speak little and never say a word without value. The notaries made their entrance and placed their documents on the velvet cloth embroidered in gold which covered the table that had been prepared for the signing of the marriage contract. One of the notaries sat down while the other remained standing. The reading of the contract was about to begin. It was read in the midst of complete silence, but as soon as the reading was finished, the buzzing of voices became even louder than before. The dazzling sums mentioned in the contract had completed the sensation already produced by the bride-to-be's trousseau and diamonds, which had been placed on display in one of the adjoining rooms. Eugenie's charms were doubled in the eyes of the young men present. As for the ladies, it goes without saying that while envying all that wealth, they themselves felt that they had no need of it in order to be beautiful. Andrea, overwhelmed with compliments and admiration from his friends, was at last beginning to believe that his dream was a reality, and he was becoming bewildered. The notary solemnly picked up the pen, raised it above his head, and announced, "Gentlemen, we shall now sign the contract." Baron Danglars was to be the first to sign, then the representative of Major Cavalcanti, then Madame Danglars, and then finally the future bride and bridegroom. Danglars picked up the pen and signed, then handed it to the Major's representative. Madame Danglars approached, accompanied by Madame de Villefort. "Isn't it annoying?" she said to her husband. "We've been deprived of the pleasure of Monsieur de Villefort's company by an unexpected development in that case of robbery and murder in the Count of Monte Cristo's house." "That's too bad," said Danglars in the same tone in which he would have said, "What do I care about that?" Monte Cristo stepped over and said, "I'm afraid I may have been the cause of Monsieur de Villefort's absence." "You, Count," said Madame Danglars as she signed the contract. "If that's true, I'll never forgive you for it." Andrea pricked up his ears. "It wasn't my fault," said the Count, "and I'd like to explain it to you." Everyone around him began to listen attentively. "As you may remember," he continued, "a man who had broken into my house to rob me was killed, apparently by his accomplice. In trying to save his life, they undressed him and threw his clothes into a corner where the police picked them up. The police took his coat and trousers, but they overlooked his vest." Andrea began to edge quietly toward the door. Well, that vest was found today, covered with blood and with a hole in the place over the heart, continued the Count. It was brought to me. No one could imagine where it had come from. I alone happened to think that it had probably belonged to the murder victim. My valet, searching through it with disgust, felt a piece of paper in one of the pockets. He pulled it out. It was a letter addressed to you, Baron. To me, exclaimed Danglars. Yes, to you. I managed to read your name beneath the blood with which the letter was spattered, added Monte Cristo amid a general outburst of surprise. But how did that keep Monsieur de Villefort from coming here tonight? Asked Madame Danglars, looking uneasily at her husband. It's quite simple, madam, replied Monte Cristo. The vest and the letter constituted evidence in the case, so I sent them both to the public prosecutor. Legal proceedings are the safest in criminal matters. It may have been some plot against you. Andrea looked steadfastly at Monte Cristo and disappeared into the adjoining salon. That's possible, said Danglars. The murdered man was an escaped convict, wasn't he? That's right. An escaped convict named Caderousse. Danglars paled slightly. Andrea left the adjoining salon and entered the antechamber. But finish signing the marriage contract, said Monte Cristo. I see my story has upset everyone. Please forgive me. Madame Danglars, who had just signed, handed the pen back to the notary. And now, Prince Cavalcanti, said the latter. Where are you, Prince Cavalcanti? Go find the prince and tell him it's his turn to sign, said Danglars to one of his servants. At this moment, a crowd of terrified people flowed into the main salon as though some frightful monster had just entered the house, and indeed, there was cause to step back in fear. An officer had posted 2 gendarmes at the door of each salon and was walking toward Danglars, preceded by a police commissary. Madame Danglars screamed and fainted. Danglars, who felt himself threatened, the conscience of some men is never calm, presented to his guests a face discomposed by terror. Which of you gentlemen goes by the name of Andrea Cavalcanti? Asked the commissary. A murmur of astonishment arose over all the salon. Everyone looked around. But who is this Andrea Cavalcanti? Asked Danglars, who scarcely knew what he was saying. He's an escaped convict from the prison at Toulon, and he's also accused of murdering another escaped convict by the name of Caderousse. Monte Cristo cast a rapid glance around him. Andrea had disappeared.